Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After running through the news you need to know about, we're running through the fan cave where we answer fans' questions. Over the Super Bowl weekend and this past week, the Dolphins have made a lot of really awesome moves and made a lot of really good decisions, especially after the debacle that was the Brian Flores situation. The way he got fired, the allegations that came out after that, it was an absolute clown show. It's not the first time we've seen a clown show under Stephen Ross. We've seen it quite a few times. And after that, I was like, and especially going into an offseason without a coach, like all of that drama, and we don't have a head coach, I didn't think the Dolphins were capable of rebounding after that and actually making a lot of good decisions. And believe it or not, I cannot believe I'm saying this. Now, we don't know if we don't know what Mike McDaniel will become, but they did hire someone who has a lot of respect across the league. But if you look at the coaching staff that Mike McDaniel has assembled, I actually like this coaching staff more than I do Brian Flores' coaching staff a year ago. I think this coaching staff is significantly better. As a fan, I feel more comfortable with it. It makes me feel a lot better about the Dolphin situation. So I like this coaching staff a lot more than a year ago, which I would not have predicted after the Brian Flores fire. I would have believed pigs could fly before I believed Stephen Ross and Chris Kerr could have actually assembled a really experienced coaching staff that has had a lot of success in the league. I did not expect this. We actually have a pretty dang good coaching staff. Obviously, Mike McDaniel has a lot of credibility around the league as well. It just completely changes the feeling around the Dolphins as a franchise, I think. So they've done a really good job. Hats off to Stephen Ross and Chris for making, I think, a few really nice decisions when it comes to coaching staff, because they have a nice foundation with the roster. We were, I think, all worried and had no faith that they were going to be able to surround it with good coaches. So I can't wait to get into some of the coaching hires. So let's start here. One of the most important ones was obviously who's going to be the new offensive line coach. This offensive line coach was, or not the offensive line coach, but the offensive line was abysmal. Plus, we've had really bad luck with offensive line coaches in the past. I think it was Brian's second or first year where we fired our offensive line coach like mid training camp. Like, we've had terrible luck with offensive line coaches. Whether they've left after 1 year or we fired them, even with Adam Gase, it was a train wreck. So this is a very important hire, and I think they made a really nice decision. The Dolphins hire former offensive line coach for Boston College, Matt Applebaum. Now, if you don't know much about this guy, like I didn't, this dude has a lot of respect around the league, you know, or not I guess around football. I wouldn't say around the league. He hasn't coached in the NFL since 2010, I believe. But he has a lot of respect in college. He produced a few, not really, but a few talented offensive linemen that are going to be high picks this year in the NFL draft, which is obviously a big thumbs up on his resume. But let's get into Matt Applebaum. This was tweeted from someone who has, I guess, a little bit more knowledge. I think he's a BC fan, a Boston College fan. So this is a little information on Matt Applebaum. New O-line coach Matt Applebaum comes from the Shanahan tree. He was on the Washington staff in 2010. According to PFF, this O-line at Boston College ranked second in the NCAA in 2021. So their O-line was second ranked by the way, PFF's rankings are pretty hardcore when it comes to line of scrimmage. For them to rank second in all of college football is pretty impressive. Obviously, this is not the biggest program, Boston College. It's obviously a big program, but it's not one of the biggest. I don't think I would have even have said that Boston College had a top 3 rated offensive line. So this guy obviously has the credentials, knows what he's talking about. He comes from the Shanahan tree. Why that's a big deal is because Mike McDaniel obviously comes from the Shanahan tree. He coaches the same run blocking scheme as Matt Applebaum is familiar with, so it's a really nice cohesive fit there. And the guy has a really good track record of developing offensive linemen. You know, to not even be, I don't know if Boston College was top 25 this year, but to not be one of the more like elite programs and to have an offensive line that highly ranked. Plus, I like, not only is he from the same coaching tree as Mike McDaniel, but I kind of like that he comes from more of a northern school and coached up there and kind of coached, because Boston College is always like a physical football team, obviously a cold weather team, and I kind of like that. I hope he brings that mentality to Miami, because obviously we play in Buffalo and New England, in New York, so it's nice to kind of have that mentality on our offensive line, which I feel like that's definitely been something this team has missed, is that physicality up front. And hopefully he can kind of bring a little bit of that to the team as well. So overall, love the hire. The dude, obviously, really good fit schematically, and his track record is pretty dang good as well. So big thumbs up from the Dolphins. I like this hire a lot. I'm excited to see what he does with the offensive line. And who knows, maybe we get some Boston College offensive linemen in the draft because of him. We'll see. I think there are two guys that are 2 or 3 that I think people have had high grades on. So let's move on. So some of the other bigger hires, like the Dolphins really did. And Mike, I don't know who we give the credit to. I guess Mike McDaniel. He's the one assembling it. So give the most of credit to Mike. Mike's done a fantastic job of surrounding the coaching staff with not only some new blood like Mike or Matt Applebaum. I cannot believe I've just forgot his name. Who's a little bit newer, and some veteran guys too, which I really like. So let's get into some other news. This one is like confirming things. I don't know if we talked about this. I think it was more rumored on the last week's episode, but I do want to confirm this. The Dolphins are keeping Josh Boyer officially as their defensive coordinator. I don't think we talked about this last week as an official thing, but this is official. Josh will be coming back as the play caller this year. I think this is a fantastic, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because I've been ranting and raving about this. This is a really good hire. I know a lot of people wanted Vic Fangio. A lot of Dolphins fans wanted that. I'm not against that. I do think that this scheme fits the roster more than Vic would have. And I think that's a huge plus. Not only that, but I think Josh is a really good play caller. I know a lot of people there's been some criticism over the last week since he was officially hired as DC that he was one of the big reasons why the defense kind of switched back to its aggressive style. A lot of people are saying Brian Flores was the big part of that. All I can say about that is I remember during the season when Brian had a press conference, and it was when one of the games that we were on our 7-game win streak, and they asked him what the turnaround was, and he credited Josh for kind of leaning them towards going back to some of the stuff that we did in 2020, where our defense was so successful. So I don't know how much truth is to that. I don't know if some other beat writer has come out with, more evidence of that. I have no idea. But I do remember Brian crediting him for that. In my opinion, Josh is a fantastic defensive play caller. He's obviously going to keep a lot of continuity on that side of the ball. And it's the side of the ball that carried the team to 9 wins. And he is the defensive coordinator of that position. And I think he's a fantastic defensive coordinator. So I think this is a really, really good move by the team. Obviously, it keeps the continuity. So a lot of the young players like Jalen Phillips or Javon Holland don't have to just scrap and kind of start over. They can just kind of hit the ground running, which I think is really, really, really good. The Dolphins are obviously retaining Eric Studesville. I always mess up his name. Obviously, he's been coaching the running backs ever since Adam Gase was here. So he was obviously a co-offensive coordinator this previous season. He will be going back according to Pro Football Rumors. I don't know if I saw that or told you that this where this news story comes from, but he's officially going back to being a running backs coach. Which, honestly, he's worked with a lot of lower end talent guys, and I think he's developed them pretty well. So I like Eric. I think he's a good assistant coach. I think this is a nice move as well. George Godsey will not be returning. He's going to go coach in Baltimore. Good riddance. In defense of George, did an okay job at the end of the year with not a lot of talent. So it is what it is, but nobody's going to miss George. I can tell you that. Danny Crossman will be retained as the special teams coordinator, which I think is a really good move as well. Danny did a really good job here, and I think he deserves it. So the Dolphins did a good job of retaining the right guys and get rid of some other guys that they should have gotten rid of, like George. And I think Eric and Josh and Danny are all really good assistant coaches, and I think they're going to do a good job and continue to do a good job. Hopefully they give Eric someone who has a little bit more talent, and he can develop him even more to greater heights there. I I want to make sure I didn't miss any other like smaller hires here. I just want to hit on a lot of the big ones. Okay, here's another big one. Dolphins hire Frank Smith as OC, as their offensive coordinator. Before we get into this article, Mike Daniel was asked who's going to be calling the plays. This was after he hired Frank. Again, this news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. He said in an interview that he is going to be calling plays. So, just in case you guys are wondering who's calling plays. So, Frank's going to be more of like a quality control guy and obviously help teach the offense to the players, but he is not going to call plays. So, back to the story. Dolphins officially hire Frank Smith as their new offensive coordinator. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Not long after interviewing Frank Smith for the biggest remaining role on Mike McDaniel's new staff in Miami, the team has hired him, according to Tom Pelissero of NFL Network. Smith, 40, began his NFL coaching career with the Saints in 2010. Following 6 seasons in the college ranks, he then spent 3 years as the tight end coach of the Bears, which in the same title he held with the Raiders from 2018 to 2020. So he was with the Bears for 3 years. Then he went to the Raiders as a tight end coach. And yeah, he was a part of a unit that oversaw Darren Waller become what he was today. So he's a lot of people some credit for that there. So he was the tight end coach from 2018 to 2021 with the Raiders, and obviously the years before that he was a tight end coach of the Chicago Bears. So I'm guessing his background is obviously West Coast offense, coaching under Sean Payton and John Gruden. They run a very similar scheme. Obviously, one runs it a lot better than the other, but so those, and obviously, if you know Mike McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay, they all come from that same West Coast-based passing game. So obviously, it's a schematic fit there. And I love that style. It fits Tua's game a lot. I've said this before, but if Tua was ever coached by Sean Payton, it would be a match made in heaven. So obviously their offenses are very similar to that when it comes to passing the football, especially in the shotgun. They have a lot of the same principles. So to me, this is a good hire as well. And Tua, I think, is going to thrive in this offense. So another thumbs up for me for the Dolphins. I think that was a good hire. Hopefully I read that a little clearly enough for you guys to understand that, again, Frank was the tight ends coach for the Raiders and the Bears and coached under Sean Payton for 6 years. And in other news, the Dolphins have hired Darrell Bevell, which I think is another interesting hire as well. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Mike McDaniel is adding a notable name to his coaching staff, according to Aaron Wilson of the Pro Football Network. The Dolphins are expected to hire Darrell Bevell as their passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach. I think this is also a really good hire. Jeremy Fowler was the first to report it. Brought onto Urban Meyer's Jaguars coaching staff, which obviously isn't a positive, but over a year ago, Bevell has been tasked with serving as the interim head coach for the Jaguars. Darrell Bevell obviously coached for Seattle, the Minnesota, Detroit. And I know he did a lot of interesting things with Detroit as well. I like Darrell Bevell. I know some people have been critical of him. It's interesting that he is a little bit more different than I would say. He's a little bit more versatile than I would say some of the other coaches. Like, his offense doesn't scream West Coast, especially with Matthew Stafford is a little bit more down the field. It was less quick pass game. But he did some nice things in Detroit. I like this hire. He's a veteran coach. He's had some success. And yeah, I think this is one of the more underwhelming ones. I don't think this is like, oh my God, I'm super excited about it. Obviously, he's the quarterback's coach and the pass game coordinator, but I like Darrell Bevell. He's had a lot of success in the NFL. He's coached a lot of really good offenses. So I think this is a good hire. So obviously moving on to like the most drop jaw Miami Dolphins hires. I wanted to save these two for last. Dolphins to add Sam Madison to their coaching staff. I think a lot of Dolphins fans are hyped up for this one. Obviously, it was a really good corner for a long time. In Miami especially. Sam Madison is set to return to Miami. The former Pro Bowl Dolphins cornerback agreed to join their coaching staff Wednesday night. Former Chiefs assistant for 3 seasons, Madison will join Mike McDaniel's Dolphins staff as a passing game specialist and cornerbacks coach. Obviously, Sam Madison earned 4 Pro Bowl bids and notching a first-team All-Pro honors twice when he's with the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, he did win a Super Bowl with the New York Giants as well. This is 2 big thumbs up. Not only was Sam Madison a fantastic Dolphin, but he was a great coach in Kansas City. He developed a lot of really good young corners there. When the Chiefs acquired Mike Hughes from Minnesota, they did some nice things with him. Tre'Davious Ward, L'Jarius Sneed, who else? There's so many great corners that have not great, but he developed a lot of really good young corners into what they are today. And the Chiefs have a couple of really good man-to-man corners on their team. So not only is Sam Madison was a great player, but he's also a really good developer of talent and a good assistant coach as well. So it's nice to have him back, obviously, on the team. And it's just cool, man. It's just cool. It's just cool to have Sam Madison on the team again. And I also think that this is a good... Obviously, he's going into a defensive background that's already amazing. And this dude is obviously a first-team All-Pro, former first-team All-Pro. Was a great cornerback himself, so I'm sure he has a lot of knowledge to give to Byron Jones and Xavier Howard. But I think for players like Nick Needham and Noah Igbenogany, this impacts them the most, especially Noah Igbenogany. I think this can really help him out. And hopefully maybe he can help turn his career around. And help him kind of get going here. And in other really awesome Dolphins hiring news, the Dolphins have hired Wes Welker to their coaching staff, which blew my mind. It was pretty cool. The Dolphins have hired them. Again, this comes from Pro Football Rumors. Both of these news stories did. I don't know if I forgot to mention that. As their wide receivers coach. So Wes will be coming to the Miami Dolphins again as their wide receivers coach. This one hurt the Dolphins fans a lot when obviously he went to New England and had that much success. And even went to Denver late in his career and had a lot of success as well. Wes was one of the more fun slot receivers to watch over the last, I don't know, maybe of all time, to be honest with you. And obviously really kind of started that New England slot position and at least made it famous. And I think a lot of teams kind of followed in those footsteps because of Wes Welker. I think that position got a lot more popular, especially among fans and I think general managers as well because of how much success they had with that position. Not that there weren't players that came before him that played in the slot, but I think he kind of just made it what it was, especially in this era of the passing game. And obviously, in terms of, he's most famous for the Dolphins letting him go and obviously having a really good career in New England. But Wes people forget, he was a great return man for the Dolphins too. He was a lot more athletic than I think people give him credit for. But it's really cool to have him back. He's going to be coaching the receivers. In terms of what he can do and what his credentials are, I mean, I think his resume speaks for himself. He's developed or helped develop a lot of really good 49ers receivers down there. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Kendrick Bourne, who has had a really nice career. So he's done a lot of really nice things down there in San Francisco. And hopefully he can bring that up to Miami. He can, obviously Jalen Waddle is really talented. I don't really know whose career he can help turn around. Because you really think about it, the receiving core for the Dolphins is kind of old. Other than Waddle, the rest of them are a little bit older, like Devontae Parker, Albert Wilson, Isaiah Ford. They're all kind of veterans. So maybe the Dolphins make some moves and they can get some other guys in here and he can help develop them into really good receivers. And hopefully he can help find us a good slot receiver. Because Waddle, I think, not that Waddle can't do it, because I think he could be a great slot receiver. And I do think Wes Welker can help elevate Waddle's career. But Waddle is a great player. I'm not really too concerned about him having a great NFL career. I think he can help elevate him. But in terms of him changing a position room, there's not really a lot there for him to work with. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Dolphins do about that. I do think he can help Jalen Waddle even get to that next level. But hopefully he can help the team find a slot receiver that can help move a pure slot receiver that can help move the chains on third down and help two out in the quick passing game. Because obviously Wes knows everything about that and can help some of the receivers on the team. I just don't think the Dolphins have a true slot on their team right now. I mean, Waddle could be that, but Waddle's also a great deep threat, so he's not going to be that all the time. And you don't want him to be that all the time. You know, sometimes you might want him on a decoy route or something of that nature. I just feel like they still need that true slot guy, especially for the quick passing game. Kittle kind of does that for San Francisco a lot. Obviously, Debo helps a lot over the middle as well because he's run after the catch ability. But the Dolphins don't really have another guy to put next to Waddle. And I think that's it for the news, guys. I think we ran through it. Obviously, there's a whole lot of nonsense going on with Stephen Ross. I kind of feel indifferent about it. It's like, yeah, everybody wanted Joe Burrow. Everybody wanted to tank that year. I don't really blame Stephen Ross for wanting that. And Dolphins fans can't really act hypocritical because I remember that year. I mean, I made a podcast every single week of that season. Every fan wanted them to tank. So, and everybody knew what we were getting into that year. So I don't really blame him for that. Honestly, if his plan worked out, the Dolphins would be in a better situation than they are now. That's undeniable. So I don't know if I really blame Stephen Ross for that. So let's move on to the fan Q&A. But before we get into the fan Q&A, I want to talk about something that I also noticed. So the Dolphins have the most cap space in the National Football League. And I've said this a million times. They have a late round first round pick. There's a lot of players that are going to be on the trade market. I think and I hope that the Dolphins are very aggressive in free agency and in the trade market, because I think they have a really nice opportunity to elevate this roster to new heights, because there's a lot of things that they can do to do that. And I think Mike McDaniel, coming from guys like Sean McVay, coaching around them for years, coaching around Kyle Shanahan, obviously, in San Francisco, coaching around Matt LaFleur, what those teams and those head coaches did when they went to new teams is they were aggressive in free agency. When Matt LaFleur went to Green Bay, they spent a lot of money in free agency, especially on pass rushers with Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith. Obviously, they got Adrian Amos to kind of shore up that defense. If you look at what Sean McVay has done with can't remember their general manager's name right now, but obviously what they did with the LA Rams, they were very aggressive in the trade market and free agency. And then you look what Kyle Shanahan did. They were very aggressive in free agency and in the trade market, getting players like Trent Williams in the trade market and Jimmy Garoppolo. And they got D Ford at one point. I'm forgetting some other players. They got Alex Mack is another good. They've done a lot to kind of surround that team with players from the trade market, and they've been very aggressive when it comes to that. Even trading, obviously, like a ton of first round picks to move up from the draft. I think hopefully Mike brings that mentality here, and he has so much to work with in terms of assets between cap space and draft capital. He can really do whatever the heck he wants. And he can outbid a lot of other teams in the league. So I'm hoping he brings that mentality to Miami and uses the assets that he has this year to go out and get a Calvin Ridley. Use your late first round pick. You're not going to get anyone of like super high value anyway. Go get a superstar receiver for Tua Tagovailoa. Go use your cap space to get some there's a lot of really good free agent offensive linemen like Orlando Brown and Brandon Sheriff from Washington. Go out and be aggressive and get some of those guys. And I hope he brings that mentality to Miami. And if he does, he can literally do whatever he wants. And we know Chris Greer listens to whoever is his head coach. I mean, even Mike McDaniel admitted that in a radio interview that he did, where he said one of the best qualities about Chris Greer is he adapts to what you want to do. And we've seen that over the last how many ever years that Chris has been the general manager. So whatever Mike wants, obviously Chris is going to do. Stephen Ross has never been a stingy owner. Hopefully he just lets Mike McDaniel do whatever the heck he wants when it comes to the offseason. He doesn't get in the way of that. But Mike can spend as much money as he wants. This isn't like Mike Brown in Cincinnati. Stephen Ross will write as many checks as Mike McDaniel wants to write. It's just about not making those decisions for him. That's what I'm kind of concerned about. Hopefully he doesn't do that and just lets Mike do it. But Mike, like I said, he's coached with Sean McVay. He coached with Kyle Shanahan. He coached with Matt LaFleur. All three of those guys made aggressive moves in the offseason to improve their roster. And hopefully the Dolphins do that, because they haven't really done that. Especially when Brian Flores was here. They made it a point to really build the thing through the draft, and they did a pretty good job of that. They added a lot of really nice players to the roster. Whether it's undrafted free agents or some guys off the street or drafting, they've done a solid job of that. But I really do think there's an opportunity to really change the trajectory of this team and make it something really special. If I was Mike McDaniel, or anybody in that organization for that matter, I would. This would be like a kid in a candy store. I mean, you have unlimited access to anybody that you want, unless they just don't want to play for Miami, obviously. But in terms of trade market, free agency, you can do whatever the heck you want. I just hopefully they take advantage of that, because there's so many good players that they could acquire. Like I said, they could get Calvin Ridley. And give up, and they won't even have to pay him. He's still on his rookie deal. They just have to give up a first round pick that doesn't even matter. They can get him. They could get Juju Smith-Schuster for cheap. If you guys remember, Juju Smith-Schuster not only is coming off an injury, but the year before that he took a pay cut to stay in Pittsburgh. So I don't think he's going to cost that much money. There are so many good players that they could get for not that much that would make huge impacts on the team. So I just hope that hopefully they do it, and it makes me really excited for the offseason. And it makes me really excited because they did make so many really good decisions when it comes to coaching staff. Like I said, I love this coaching staff a lot more than I did a year ago. And I think they're headed in the right direction. I just hope they can keep this up when it comes to roster decisions. I'm so excited to see what they do with all these assets in the offseason. So I'm excited to see what ends up happening there. So let's get into the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. This first question comes from Beef. He says, "Hey, Skaggs, do you think the Dolphins are going to be very involved in free agency coming up?" We just kind of discussed that. Just to answer your question, Beef, everything I just said before, I think absolutely. I hope Mike McDaniel brings that roster-building mentality. And he doesn't have to overdo it like the Rams. I don't think he has to go that far, but I do want that aggressiveness. Like, go out and get some superstar players for Tua to play with. Give him every opportunity to be that guy that we all think he can be. And they have every opportunity to do that. So I hope they do. This next question comes from Jackpack. He says, "We all know the O-line needs to be fixed, but I also want to see the linebacker group get some upgrades. Besides Jerome and Baker, they're all mediocre at best." I disagree with that. I like Landon Roberts. I think he's at an average to a little bit above. I don't think he's anything below an average NFL starter, which is, to be honest with you guys, hard to find in the NFL. That sounds easy, but it's not. There's a lot of linebackers out there that are not better than Landon Roberts. So I actually like Landon. I don't think it's one of... What the Dolphins need to focus on is the offense. Who cares about the defense? The defense is fine. It doesn't need to be drastically improved or improved. You could add some cherries and some icing to it, but it doesn't need the treatment like the offense. The offense needs a makeover. It needs a move that bus, home improvement style. Fix this. This is a burn victim. It needs a skin graft. It needs that. Like, it needs everything to be put into it. So I think the Dolphins need to focus on the offense. We all saw that statistic. This team... This team is... something in my eye. What was... I just lost my train of thought. Oh, this team hasn't had a top 10 offense... total offense since 1995. And I believe it as a Dolphins fan. I mean, it's been pretty rough. So I hope they just... like I said, really focus on the offense and make it better, because it is abysmal. The next question comes from Richard Rodriguez. He says, "How serious are the tanking for pay and tampering allegations against Ross, and do you think he will be forced to sell the team?" I think, yeah, they'll make an example out of him. I don't think what he did was that wrong. The roster was terrible. He told the fans that's what they were going to do. He literally told everybody, "Hey, man, we're going to build it through the draft. We're going to start over." He said that. And Chris said that before the season even started. We know that's what they were trying to do. We all saw the roster, so I don't really understand what the issue is, other than the league. Obviously, it's a bad look for the NFL. You can't have owners doing that. Even though, as a fan, it didn't really bother me, and it still doesn't bother me that he did that. If he was fixing games to gain money or something crazy like that, obviously no, you can't do that. But Stephen Ross obviously doesn't need money. And the reasoning was not that terrible. But yeah, I think the NFL, especially how the public has reacted to it, like everybody is acting like this is World War III for some reason. I don't know why. It's like, guys, we all knew that this is what was happening. I don't know why this is such a big deal. Many teams have done it in the past. A lot of teams have done it in the past. It is not in this. People act like tanking was invented in the last 10 years. Tanking has been around forever. Watch any NFL sports documentary and listen to any former NFL GMs. They have all, at one point or another, I've seen it a million times, said the team was bad or they were trying to lose to get a high draft pick, whether it's a quarterback or another position. So to me, it's ridiculous. It's a part of sports, but it is what it is. I don't know if you guys feel any differently about that. I don't know. I know Dolphins fans, there's no way you guys would be as upset. It's like, yeah, we know. We watch the team. Like, it's like, I don't know. This question comes from Mark. He says, do you think our defense will lose a step? If Tua doesn't show a big leap, should we get rid of him, even if we make the playoffs? Say if he's 22 touchdowns or 14 interceptions and throws for 3,000 yards. In the draft of free agency, should we go all offense? Sorry for the essay. No, I think these are all good questions. So let's start with the free agency question. Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that this team needs a massive makeover when it comes to the offense. So yes, put all the assets in the offense. I think we all know that's the direction the team is going in. Obviously, they hired an offensive coordinator as their head coach, so I'm glad that hopefully we can continue to go in that direction. Yeah, even if we made the play, will our defense do? Okay, let's start with this. Will our defense lose a step? No, I don't even know why we would. I think we're, and especially since we retain the scheme, there's no reason for us to lose a step. So no, I don't believe that. And if Tua doesn't show a huge leap, should we get rid of him? Even if we make the playoffs, say if he's 22 touchdowns or 14 interceptions. Yeah, if he plays bad, like say he has the same year he did this past season, and we still make the playoffs in the backs of our defense, and maybe the run game. Yeah, you gotta move on, dude. This is his last year. Now, here's the thing I will say: if this team just completely poops all over the place, sprays diarrhea everywhere, and doesn't help him in terms of talent, then that's on the franchise, okay? But if they do a good enough job to put enough talent around him, show up the offensive line, get him a legitimate run game, get him better weapons to pass to, because I think people don't really understand. I mean, the weapons that he's been throwing to him have been god-awful. If they do that and he still plays at that level, then yes. I don't think he will. I really don't. I do believe that if they do a better job and do a more competent job of making his job easier, like they should, then we'll see the results. This next question comes from Ethan. He says, what are your two favorite coaching hires and two least favorite coaching hires by Mike McDaniel? Thanks. That's a really good question, Ethan. I think my two favorite ones, I would say, I like the Applebaum one a lot. I think from the things I've been reading about him, even that little thing I read to you about, like, it makes me confident, and especially since, like I said, if he brings that northern mentality to the offensive line, I think that's going to be a really good thing. I like that hire a lot. I really like I'm going to say Wes Welker and Sam Madison, and you can throw Matt Applebaum in there. I think those are really, really good hires. I don't have a two least favorite, because I really like the Josh Boyer hire. I really like retaining Danny Crossman. I think that was a good move. But if I had to say like my least favorite hire, I would say Darrell Bevell. He's had some stretches where it's like, it's not great. And so I think that would probably be my least favorite, even though Darrell, I think, has done all in certain jobs that he's taken, like with Detroit, and when he was with Minnesota, obviously his job wasn't as high in Minnesota, but even when he was in Jacksonville, he did some nice things. He did coach one of the worst offenses in the NFL last year. That wasn't all his fault. I know some people have been critical of him in the past. I would say that's kind of, it was like, all right, it wasn't a slam dunk like some of the other ones. This next question comes to Jack Pack. He says, try not to be pessimistic, but as Dolphins fans, we've been here before with the new coach and staff. What do you think this time will be different? I think for sure. First of all, I don't expect people to remember this, like I'm speaking gospel here, but when the Brian Flores was first hired here, I didn't like it. I didn't like anything. I didn't like the coaching staff. I didn't like him as the hire. I thought it was a bad move. And I didn't like Adam Gase's coaching staffs either. So I did like Adam Gase at the time when he was hired, which was obviously, in looking back on it, was stupid. But my opinion of this coaching staff is definitely, I think I have a higher opinion of this, especially offensively, than last year. It's way better than it was a year ago. So I think that's a big reason it'll be different. And I think Mike McDaniel I really agree with a lot of his philosophies of team building too. So for me, in my opinion, I think Mike, in terms of building a roster and assembling a coaching staff, is getting off to a good start. I think that's it, guys. We have a few more questions for Beef. I think we'll answer one more. Sorry, Beef. I think this is the second one we've answered your Beef, but my throat's starting to kind of quench up a little bit. Don't know why. I'm trying to see which one I want to do. This question comes from Beef. He says, "Hey Skaggs, unless you haven't talked about it yet, what did you think of the hiring of quarterback coach Darrell Bevell? He was last with Jacksonville, helping out Trevor Lawrence, especially defeating Indy. Especially defeating Indy. He worked with Stafford, worked with Russell Wilson in Seattle, and in Green Bay, with Favre and Rodgers. Yeah, he has a lot of history. Now, working with great quarterbacks, a lot of the time is a negative, in my opinion. But he has a lot of knowledge. He's been around a lot of great quarterbacks. This wasn't a bad hire by any stretch of the imagination. Like you point out, Beef, and thank you for pointing that out, by the way. He's worked with Stafford, Russell, Aaron, Brett, and obviously with Trevor Lawrence this past season. I'm not saying it was a bad hire, but I wasn't as enthusiastic about it as some of the other ones. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I needed to be more consistent on the channel. And definitely, I don't want to say take it more seriously, but work a little bit harder towards it. I feel like I'm letting it go a little bit too much, and hopefully I do a better job of that this year. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'm very excited about the off season. I really like when Mike McDaniel talks about building a team. I'm like, dude, that's exactly how we all want a great offensive line. We all know how important that is. We haven't heard that for the last 6-7 years here, maybe even more than that. That's obviously very important to roster building, and it's the core of the offense, really. And I've liked what I've heard so far from people that have coached with him or players that have coached under him. I just like where the team is headed right now. I can't even believe, you guys know, like when we fired Flo, I was in the dumps. I was like, this is awful. This team is going in the wrong direction. Stephen Ross Krisker did it again. They made another bad decision. And I can't believe. There was a second there I didn't even think Mike was going to come here because of all the allegations off the field and stuff. So I don't know. I'm just really happy that we turned it around like this. I mean, we have a lot of really good veteran coaches on this staff. We have a lot of really good just coaches on this staff, and especially offensively. So I don't know. I'm really excited about it, and I'm excited to see the offense, and I'm most excited to see the roster decisions. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.